There's a pastor named Brian Loritz. He's the pastor of Abundant Life Fellowship in the Bay Area. He is fantastic. We have to get Brian here. You guys are going to love Brian. Ray and I were with him about 3 weeks ago. And Brian took me aside. We were talking, and he told me the story of someone he grew up with. It was a kid named Ted McLeod. So Brian was like college age in the 80s. Brian grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and this kid, Ted McLeod, that he grew up with was an unbelievable basketball player. He was a baller. And this year, they were about 19 years old, and Ted proclaimed to all of his boys that he was going to walk on Georgia Tech University's basketball team, and he was going to make the team that year. And so he practiced and trained that summer. School started, and he told the guys, I'm going for it. And so they saw him get on the bus and ride to Georgia Tech University day after day after day. Well into September, he finally got face-to-face with Georgia Tech's coach, who was Bobby Crimmins back then. He was a great NCAA coach. And Ted said he spent 2 weeks talking Coach Crimmins into allowing him to try out for the team. And he succeeded. And Coach Crimmins said, all right, you can try out for the team. So Ted came home that day, told all the guys, he's letting me try out. He came home with some practice gear, Georgia Tech University, yellow jackets. He was pumped. And so he spent the next 3 weeks trying out. Every day he'd come home with more practice gear. And they saw him go every day. And so after 3 weeks, Coach Crimmins sat him down. Ted, I got to tell you, I didn't know who you were, where you came from, but you busted your tail. I'm proud of you. You made the team. Ted was so excited. And so Coach Crimmins says, look, I got to do about 48 hours worth of paperwork. You go home, celebrate, come back here in 48 hours, and you'll practice with the team. So Ted went home. He grabbed more practice gear. He was giving out Georgia Tech yellow jacket stuff to everybody at home. They were so excited for him. So 48 hours later, he came back to see Coach Crimmins and start. And Coach Crimmins sat him down in his office, and Coach Crimmins had a look of disappointment on his face. And he sat down and he said, Ted, I got to tell you, I did a bunch of research. You don't even go to school here. He said, I found out you're enrolled in the junior college down the street. You don't have a class here. You don't know a teacher. You don't have a book. You haven't registered. As a matter of fact, you haven't even filled out an application to go to school here. And all this time, his boys were thinking, man, we saw Ted get on the bus every day and go to Georgia Tech. We saw him with Georgia Tech practice jerseys on and Georgia Tech hats. We saw him. What happened? We thought he was the real deal. And I think about Ted McLeod, and I had that picture in my mind. I was thinking about that when Brian told me that story. And I said, you know what? Ted McLeod is the picture of some of us in the church. We have all the CDs. We have all the T-shirts. We go to church on a regular basis. We got a bumper sticker on our car that's a fish eating another fish. But we're not even enrolled in college. We haven't even applied. If you're not spending quality time with the Lord Jesus Christ in prayer, how can you say you have a authentic relationship with him? Yeah, I've raised my hand, yeah. And I raised my hand at church. I raised my hand at summer camp. I'm going to heaven. Absolutely, that's not in question. But what about your relationship? Is it real on a daily basis? Or is it like Ted McLeod, I'm just wearing the practice jersey? And if it's not, we've got to get that right today.